Who do you say I am? Years ago, after a long day at work, obviously before I became a minister, because according to my dad, ministers only work one day a week, I saw this bumper sticker, and I've shared this with some of you, on the car in front of me. And the bumper sticker on their bumper read, "Jesus is the answer." To which I responded, "Yeah, but what is the question?" Today's gospel could be worded like that. What is life's question to which Jesus is the answer? Jesus is history's most familiar figure. While he was alive, he had no place to live. But today, 20 centuries later, we have San Francisco, named after St. Francis, one of Jesus' followers. San Jose, after Jesus' own dad. Sacramento, a reference to the sacrament of the Last Supper. And we have Lansing. Nobody knows what that place means. He never painted, yet Jesus and his followers became the most frequent subjects of art in the world. He has been portrayed in many movies in Hollywood, usually by blonde-haired, blue-eyed Swedish actors, and he is the subject of 1 million songs. Jesus never married, but millions have been wed in his name. He never wrote a book, and yet the movement he started would give rise to libraries and universities like Oxford and Harvard and my old alma mater, What's the Matter You? Hospitals and relief efforts of all kinds emerged from his movement. Even in death, Jesus' influence is hard to escape. The word cemetery comes from the Greek word meaning sleeping place, expressing the hope of resurrection. Jesus puzzled people then, he puzzles us still. Understanding his life is like listening to an answer which, when you get it, you realize you always somehow knew it. Like light on a strange path that, when you follow it, turns out to lead you home. He is as hard to nail down as Jell-O. He inspired Leo Tolstoy, who in turn inspired Gandhi, who in turn inspired Martin Luther King Jr., who inspires Desmond Tutu. The number of groups claiming to be for Jesus are inexhaustible. Jews for Jesus, Muslims for Jesus, bodybuilders, road riders, and cowboys for Jesus, wrestlers, clowns, and puppets for Jesus, hookers for Jesus, they make rugs, grumpy old men for Jesus, not sure what they do, probably fish, even atheists for Jesus. Was Jesus just a kind and simple, innocent man with a good mom and a knack for catchy sayings, Jesus Gump? Or in him do we find the fullness of God? Being a disciple of Jesus was both terrifying and exhilarating. He was talking to his disciples at Caesarea Philippi, which is easy to skip over, but it's rather significant. Caesarea Philippi was scattered with temples. There was a Syrian temple dedicated to Baal, the storm god. The Jewish historian Josephus wrote that in that area, at that spot, it was the source of the Jordan River, which was swimming with the memories of Jewish history. In Caesarea Philippi, there was a great Roman temple of white marble built to the divine Caesar, the Son of God. It was the home of the Greek goat god Pan. People came from all over the world to worship the god Pan. There's a cliff with a giant crack in it that the followers of Pan believed was the place where spirits from Hades would come and go to and from the earth. The crack was called the gates of hell. They built a temple for Pan where people would do all kinds of weird, lewd things during the worship festivals, like dress up the goats and drink wine and play loud music and go dancing, goat dancing, like they do in Las Vegas, goat dancing. And Jesus is there with his disciples. As good Jewish boys, they never would have gone to this place. They had to walk over 20 miles from their hometown of Galilee to get there. And what did they talk about? Did Jesus even tell them why they were going there? To Sin City? To Caesar's palace? To pagan place? To Goatville? Did the disciples say things like, if our parents find out about this, we are so busted? Jesus was thinking his time was short. His days were numbered, and he wondered, does anybody really understand me? Do they know who I am, what I'm about? Do they get it? He tells them at Caesarea Philippi that upon this rock he is going to build his church. And he looked over at the temples and he said, even the gates of hell will not be able to stop it. Now, the Roman Catholics see this as the doctrine of the papacy, where the founding of the church will be through the succession of Peter, who is usually pictured holding a key, the key to the kingdom. Protestants see Peter as an early leader, but Jesus alone as the rock upon which the church is built. They fought about it for centuries, of course, in once again a tremendous and blatant example of missing the point. It's the question that's the point at Caesarea Philippi. What a dramatic picture. If you can visualize this, there a homeless, penniless carpenter from a crummy little town called Nazareth stood with 12 shaggy disciples in an area littered with pagan temples. There of all places, this amazing carpenter stood and asked his companions who they believed him to be. Set against the background of the world's religions and history and mythology and white marbled splendor, he asked them for a verdict. He is still asking today. Who do you say that I am? What sort of testimony do we offer about him through our words and the things that we do and the way we live our lives? Do we know him as the one who was sent, the one who took flesh, the one who dwelt with us, the one who suffered and died and was buried, the one who rose on the third day? The bread, the living water, the light of the world, the hidden treasure, the great physician, the teacher, the true vine, the eternal word, the wisdom, the way, the truth, the life. Who do you say that I am? I think it's interesting and nearly as important to reverse the question. Who does Jesus say you are? He told us in order to find ourselves, we have to lose our false self that we've constructed over our lives. We have to acknowledge the truth about who we are, to face up to the reality in all of our junk, to take off the masks that we like to wear from time to time. There's an old story about a desperate man who gets a job at a zoo. The warden explains that their gorilla has died, they can't afford a new one, so they'll pay this man to dress up like one. He balks at first, but needing the money badly, he finally agrees. And each day he gets more enthusiastic about his new job. And one day he swings on his vine so hard he ends up in the cage next door, the lion's cage. And feeling the lion's hot breath on his face, he forgets his disguise and he begins to scream for help. At which point the lion says, "Shut up, you idiot, or we'll both lose our jobs." Wearing masks can become a way of life. Pretending to be happy when you're not. pretending to be spiritual when in truth there's a great distance between you and God. Being authentic with God is the only way, because the search for God and the search for your true self is one and the same search. As Oscar Wilde said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." And it's the same with our children, our kids. And that's what's so wonderful and important about Lion's Roar. Because underneath all the Bible lessons and the crafts and the songs and the games and the jokes and the videos is the main message. Who He is and who they are. You are loved, accepted, gifted, smart, strong, unique, blessed, chosen. Every child, every week, hears that message. Being loved means being chosen. There's no gift like being chosen, just like there's no pain like being rejected. And when a reject, like Peter or me, is chosen by somebody, a life gets changed. And I want to end with just a short story, since it's the beginning of school, from a book called The Whisper Test by Mary Ann Bird. And she grew up knowing that she was different. She was born with a cleft palate. When she started school, her classmates made it clear to her how she looked. A little girl with a misshapen lip, a crooked nose, a lopsided teeth, and garbled speech. Her schoolmates asked her, "What happened to your lip?" And when they asked her, she would always tell them she fell down or she cut herself on a piece of glass. Somehow it seemed more acceptable to have suffered an accident than to have been born different, she says. Well, there was a teacher that everybody loved, like so many of our teachers here. And it was second grade. And her teacher was short and round and happy and a sparkling lady. Annually, they had a hearing test back in those days, and the teacher gave the test to everybody in class, and finally it was Mary Ann's turn. And she knew the routine. You stand against a door, you cover one ear, the teacher sitting at her desk would whisper something, and then they would have to repeat it back. Things like, "Is the sky blue?" or "Are you wearing new shoes?" So she waited there. She waited for the words that God must have put into her teacher's mouth. 7 words that changed Mary Ann's life. The teacher said in a whisper, "I wish you were my little girl." Love whispers in this person, Jesus. Can you hear it? I choose you. I value you, my brother, my sister. That's who I say you are. For people with misshapen spirits and crooked hearts and lopsided souls, these are His words, the answer to life's question. Amen.